Welcome to another BANGover Productions podcast. It's too long of a name. Anniversary review. I was thinking about just calling it The Gush. Well, we're still working on titles.
Well, we don't really review the album.
We're not reviewing it. We're just gushing.
Just talk about it. Gush about it.
We're gushing. This is The Gush. And as always, I'm Scott Allen. Our producer, Chris Myers, is with us. And super fucking fan, Jordan Groves.
Hell yeah.
Because today we're talking about Jimi Hendrix.
My favorite.
Yeah. The Jimi Hendrix Experienced, Are You Experienced? First CD, it was recorded.
Album. CDs aren't available yet. We got to know that.
First album, recorded between October 1966 and April 1967. Released in 1967. 52 years to the day, y'all. Happy birthday.
And this is the American release of the album. So the first time America got to hear this album was on this day.
3 months later.
Yeah,
After
and the UK already released it.
If you were cool in America, you knew about it before
You
then.
got a
cool
copy,
ones.
right?
You got your overseas copy sent over.
You have a passport.
Imported it.
Yeah.
Back in the day when there was like rare music and the guy that.
Have you heard this
super nerd-
Jimi Hendrix
Yeah,
guy?
right?
I got his album from Britain, dude. He's a...
Check them out.
Dude, so cool. I mean, we just wanted to get started with why we fucking love Jimi Hendrix, why we decided to do this episode. We have a lot of albums this month to do, but we couldn't pass over this one. This is a big one. It's fucking Jimi Hendrix. Everyone knows his fucking album. So, Jordan.
Man, to me, this was, right place, right time. We talked about in the last gush of where we were as kids hearing it. And to me, this was the classic rock that my dad, taught me on. But this had blues in it. This had funk in it. This had some soul. And it was all the psychedelic side because I was always a hippie kid at heart, really, at the day. But I loved it because I was a guitar player. It is ultimate guitar in my mind. As far as, 60s style, rock and roll, just anything, really. And you look at it today, everybody's still trying to, at least that's the benchmark.
Yeah, still today.
Some can pass whatever, and everybody has their own style, but it didn't matter who you were. He crossed anyone, he could do anyone, and he was amazing. And it's just, every song on it is just a journey in its own right, and it's perfect.
Right? Being a guitar player, this has to be number one for y'all.
Well, Hendrix in general, and this one being his number one, yeah. I mean, I had
True.
it. It was one of the CD you talk about, I had, that was how I got, really introduced to it, is I think either Christmas, I got it one year, and just listening to all of it. It had more than the 11 tracks that were originally released in 67.
Right.
It had the ones that were B-sides that we'll talk about, and had some that was released in post records on Smash Hits or South Saturn Delta, a couple of those other songs that were just, after he died or right before he died. And I mean, it's just, the guitar work is out there. It's very, like, you can see yourself in a dream, floating somewhere on some of these, surfing the space, underwater. The sounds he's doing on guitar is not just great scales, but the feedback he gets, it's musical. The effects he does sound like seagulls or birds when he's trying to get that ocean sound. He's doing things with a guitar that no one's really trying at this point.
Yeah,
no one. And he's pushing it to, he's pushing it to the nth degree on these. He's no holding back, and it's, overblown sound that just really shook the foundation of where it was, and I absolutely love it.
Right? Yeah. I mean, I don't know anyone that kind of that doesn't really like Jimi Hendrix. And if you don't like Jimi Hendrix, it's probably because you're trying to be different.
You're a square.
You're like, everyone likes it. It's like the Beatles. I don't like the Beatles. Like, come on.
Whatever, dude.
Come on, you fucking.
Fine.
There's a song that you've tapped your foot to.
Yeah.
Chris, how did you get here?
I think I had a greatest hits album, but a lot of those songs on that album
Or from this. Yeah.
And that the fact that this is like his first debut and foray into, he's performed with other bands throughout his career, but this is his first, tap into the experience, the Jimi Hendrix experience. Of, you know, it's not him and James Brown or him and some other cats. It's him, his ideas. You know, some of the first songs you're hearing on is like, these are songs, some of his first tunes. They're making him write. Like, hey, okay, you did Hey Joe, but we need a B-side, and you need to come up with it on your own. It's got to be an original tune. So him and two other great players sit in a room, and they come out with. They're all amazing players, so you get amazing songs out of it. And I think producer Chaz
Chandler.
Chaz Chandler.
He recognized this. I think everybody that hears it recognizes it, and especially if you were to tell the layman person that, you know, some of these songs are some of the first ones he's written as like a musical force, and you know, people would be, wow, okay, that just adds to the mystique and motif of him being how great he was, because holy shit, I mean, one of the first songs you write is Stone Free. You're going somewhere, kid. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
Great song.
Yeah.
And then we'll also get into his history about partly why he was able to do this, because the people he worked with and pretty much studied under were the greats. And this is also the era of the greatest musicians of all time, from
Collaborating
20s
together.
to about, you know, the 70s. The greatest musicians, the greatest music that was pretty much ever recorded as far as Americana goes happened now.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
this is it.
Insane. For me, it's this is my dad's music. You know, this is something I heard sitting in the backseat of the car when I was younger. First memories of hearing songs, the radio. My dad was super into rock and roll, so it was like Jimi Hendrix, just obsessed. You know, it was Black Sabbath, whatever. But these Jimi Hendrix songs, you turn onto the radio. I'll slam on the radio right now, and I guarantee we'll probably hear a Jimi Hendrix song within 10 minutes. Like, for sure, a classic rock station is blaring this shit. That, and when I first started playing drums, these are like, because I had to start off in just the basic rock and roll, you know, like the Leonard Skinner, like I was saying on previous episodes. And these were some of the songs too. These were a next step, like in difficulty, because of the three-piece dynamic, because everyone's killing it. You have to, because it's a fucking three-piece, and whoever's playing the guitar part has to be really fucking good. And they're probably not going to be singing the song, you know what I mean? They probably most likely had a separate singer, and these drum parts are like good to learn, to get basics and like an idea of a sense of like what classic, like quote unquote classic music sounds like, because they were using these drum styles from those R&B bands from back in the day, jazz drumming, you know, like these are all kind of like classically trained musicians.
And
no one just
Mitch
picked up a
was.
guitar.
I think he played
And those-
traditional
yeah,
style.
yeah.
No
He
one picked up
using
a
that.
guitar in those days and just started a fucking band and got signed. No, you were bred into being a musician. Your family, or you started when you were younger and you worked your fucking ass off to get there. You started playing in like clubs everywhere and not making a fucking dime. But you worked your ass off. And so everyone in that scene, like you guys were saying, the greats, they were all great because they were trained into it, born into it, whatever, fucking worked their ass off to get this level. There was no duds really in this group of people.
Think about it,
you
like
know?
the
Everyone's
people
great.
you're seeing on any given night are some of the greatest musicians. So you got to step your game up there, and
For
they
real.
see that, so they
Yeah.
got to step their game up. And then you can't not get great because of that. You know, it's going to happen. And then when you have the talent that mixed in with the drive, forget about it.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
When we were wanting to do this episode, we always go back and like listen to the albums. Obviously, that's the thing. It's like with the Korn, with the Leonard Skinner, these are really iconic albums, and these songs are still being played on the radio today everywhere. So most of the CD I've already heard. What I really like to do in these cases is to kind of like, okay, I know Purple Haze, I know Foxy Lady, I know these songs. It's still fun to listen to, don't get me wrong, but to skip through to a song that's in between.
That doesn't
right?
get
It's
played
get
on
the
the
idea
radio.
of the album too. So the like how it starts, how it ends is very important, because like you said, Chris, greatest hit CD. I can't remember having an actual Jimi Hendrix album ever. It was just a fucking greatest hits. It was the 20th century fucking remastered or whatever, you know what I mean? It was never like just this album with that, you know, iconic,
The B-sides.
yeah, fucking artwork, you know, like the yellow and it's so psychedelic and everything. I just remember a lot of fucking hearing these songs out of the context of the layer of the CD. That being said, this is still a weird album because of its release in the UK and then the release in America where the songs got jumbled around, and then again getting re-released in 1997 for CD and adding on songs. So it kind of
still evolved.
It feels very tacked together in some ways. It doesn't have too much of a flow. That being said, if I was just to listen to those original 11s, UK or America, it probably had more of a consistent flow. Does that make sense? I'm not sure.
He did want to have it
I
as
didn't
a
do my
concept.
research.
He did want to have it as a concept album. And you look at, starts off in America anyways, it's Purple Haze. In the UK, he did Foxy Lady, but it starts out, kind of like a dream world or a beautiful woman. And then goes to Manic Depression. That song, it's about how he wish he could make love to music instead of this old hag that's been holding him down, this Foxy Lady in his, because that's kind of the concept. You go to Hey Joe, oh, this woman she's messing around on me. I got to shoot her down, which I got a funny story about that connection about a party a little bit later. Then his Love Confusion. What is it? Then he gets into that maybe love, Then I Don't Live Today, so he's kind of going up and down with it all. Comes in, When Cries Mary, Something Happened, it's a ballad. Fire, he don't care if you like him or not. He's going to stand next to that heat,
Yeah.
You get into Third Stone from the Sun, how an alien visited America thinking, nah, you guys, or not America, but the world, thinking, you guys can't handle it. We got to give it to somebody else, Into Foxy Lady America, talking about fun, and then our experience about are you experienced in life and love and everything.
Sounds pretty psychedelic to me.
Yeah, and
Especially that
was
alien
the
shit.
concepts
Yeah.
of it all. So yeah, man, it's so wild.
Speaking of like track listings, if you're in America, you don't get what is it? Some songs are like, or you do get some like the original UK doesn't have Hey Joe because
It was a single.
it was a single, but the North American edition you do get Hey Joe.
Yeah.
Which at the time is also
They didn't think it was a good idea to put singles on the actual album because that didn't make sense. Why would you pull out a single and then when you go to make the full length, you use that song again? They thought it was like kind of tacky and in poor taste. That's what they thought over there in the proper world, like the civilized world.
And this is also
That's why there was two different
early
releases,
eras.
right?
Yeah. He's
'Cause those
breaking down
songs should
boundaries.
be on there. Those songs should be on there. Like,
Yeah.
These are the songs that people are loving that want to buy that record. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
well, I think at that time it's selling units, so let's make the single
Yeah.
this, and then it'll sell this many units,
Yeah.
and then
there's more differences between the two albums besides for its track listings.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely start getting into that. But let's get into the next song. What we got?
The monster of riffs, in my opinion, that really does it for this album. And most iconic riff, I feel, that he did. Intro.
And that was Purple Haze by the Jimi Hendrix Experience. Let's start off with let's get into the history. How did we get to this album?
Well, it starts all the way in Seattle, Washington, basically when he was born. To Al Hendrix, and he was born to a World War II veteran. So it's that era. His dad was also honorably discharged from the World War II and what have you. Couldn't see his son when he was born, and was kept, in barracks and was watched to make sure he wasn't going AWOL to go see his son when he was born. And by the time he got discharged and came back, had to move to California and kind of fight to see him. Eventually got back home. Kind of was an alcoholic, his parents and whatnot, which kind of led for Jimmy being kind of a nervous, shy kind of kid growing up, and might kind of led to some of his other abuse later on, right? But he would always carry around a broom with him, kind of mimicking a guitar, because that's what he would always see. And this is the era of rock and roll starting to come up in America, and him being a young kid and what have you. And he had a teacher who's like, you got to get this guy a guitar, right? You need to get him something, because that's what he does. And they ended up, wouldn't do it. His dad wouldn't get him a guitar, but they found an old ukulele, one-string ukulele, that he got, and he would play that, and he learned how to play Hound Dog on it, and that was kind of the beginning. And eventually got a acoustic guitar for about $5. That's about 40 some dollars today or whatever, and started his first band, learned it, played it constantly, and started really getting his chops down. Started going with a full band. Realized you couldn't hear over an acoustic with a full band, even then, right? And
drummer's too loud.
Yeah, and ended up getting a guitar and started playing it. And then he got arrested when he was younger for riding along in stolen cars. He didn't steal the car. He was just in the joyride.
Hey, man, he's probably a kid, doing kid
what
shit.
you going to do? Yeah, hood rat
Getting in
stuff with your hood
trouble,
rat friends, right?
Nothing to do back in those days.
Yeah, no internet. There's no memes to show. There's no nudes to send at the time.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
Porn to watch.
You got to steal cars, and there was no Grand Theft
That's
Auto.
fun. That's, to steal a car, that sounds exhilarating.
It does. I mean, it
Running
does.
from the cops?
I've never done it, but hey, maybe never say
list.
never, right?
Bucket
Smash and grabs. I mean,
Yeah. So he had a choice to go to prison or to join the army, right? So he joined the army, and he had to, join the Army Airborne. Ended up needing his guitar there. And his dad sent over a guitar for him to play, and his army mates would just berate him and make fun of him because he would play more guitar than do his duties. And of course, he wasn't interested in the army even then. And he talks about it after he got out, how he hated it, how he thought it was a bunch of bullshit, and it is a cult and all that stuff. And he does represent that in the Star Spangled Banner, that he did play about the wars and all that stuff, which is his own side story. And he was, at that time, he was with Buddy Cox, or Billy Cox, who ended up playing bass with him in the band The Gypsies later on, and noticed his guitar playing and whatnot, and thought he had a good technique and what have you. So there was that kind of tie-in with those two, that came back later from the very beginning when he had short hair, high and tight. And but yeah, like I said, the army, obviously, 50s, 60s, early 60s, Vietnam is about to start. We're fighting those damn commies and whatnot. And here's this, lefty liberal, trying to play guitar. They would hide it on him.
Left-handed guitar player too.
And he's a lefty liberal, yeah. And he would be, they would hide it on him. He would freak out because that was his only, solitude and solace in life, right? He ended up breaking an ankle, hurting his back, got honorably discharged, right? Ended up coming back home with $400 in his pocket, from the discharge and his services, and went to a bar and went a jazz joint, and ended up staying there all night. And when he left that bar, he had $16 left to his name.
Fuck.
Just buying everybody drinks. He was just
Jimmy,
he was high as a kite on, getting back home, being out of the army. He hated it, About that time, though, he ended up in Knoxville, Tennessee, is kind of when his musical journey truly began, because he started at age 15 with guitar, been playing it, He gets to Knoxville, Tennessee. That's when the Isley Brothers discover him and hire him on as a guitar player. And then from there, he ends up being in the backing bands with B.B. King, Sam Cooke, Solomon Burke, Chuck Jackson, and Jackie Wilson. Ended up joining Curtis Knights and the Squires
Just
early
filling
on.
in.
And that's part of what you hear in this album, of his smorgasbord of styles coming through, because B.B. King,
Little Richie.
Well, and that's yet to come yet,
Still?
And he got kicked out of Little Richard because he was too flamboyant for Little Richard.
That's what I'm talking about.
I mean, you're making Little Richard, look like a little candle in the wind.
Yeah,
He got
insane.
this bonfire going on over here,
Should have stuck with him, man.
Yeah, it's one of those things. So he's playing with some of the best, doing R&B, jazz, rock and roll, blues from one of the three kings. That's a pretty good masters to learn from, right? And he's playing all over. He ends up doing a West Coast tour after Little Richard in Atlanta with Ike and Tina Turner, who are at that point are, top of the game. So he's getting known. People are knowing him within the industry, but America, UK, people don't know him. The music listening.
He's a backing guitar player.
Yeah.
He wore a suit and a tie and just played what he was given to play.
Like one of the millions of musicians that are the greatest musicians of all time that nobody knows.
It sounds like Stevie Wonder shit.
Yep.
You know, like just growing up learning like that big band lifestyle and then like just wanting to do your
traveling
own shit,
everywhere.
Right? Yeah.
And you got to think he's traveling everywhere during the 60s, during the changing time, during segregated South. And he's playing in all these places, West Coast, all over America. And he got in the Army. So he's right on the pulse of the zeitgeist of the 60s.
Yeah.
You know, he ends up in New York City. And he ends up playing at this with Joey D's Starlighters for a while. And he's like, okay, that's fun. That's a good start. Then he starts his own band, Jimmy James and the Blue Flames. And they started getting a residency at the Club Wah in there, which David Lee Roth, his grandfather, owned that place before.
Fucking fun fact.
Selling it before he had a residency and all that stuff. But yeah, he was playing there and living in the Greenwich Village. And around that time, Linda Keith, which was Keith Richards' girlfriend, happened to see him at a club, you know, blown away by it. She knows guitar players, apparently, right? Has a pretty good taste, if you will. Tells Chaz Chandler and Mike Jeffrey, who was the manager of the Animals at the time, and Chaz was in the Animals. They were kind of
guitar player or something?
He was one of the bass players and whatnot. And they were already on top of the charts. They had already made it at that point and were starting to dissipate into their own endeavors then. So he started his own. He wanted to go into more management and artist relations, and he had his budget. And he's like, met him and got blown away. And he's like, "That's where it's going. I want you to come to London." America wasn't quite ready for it, but London is where it's happening. And you also got to understand, this is the beginning of the psychedelic renaissance that was, and this is right before the Summer of Love of '67. You know, in that this is right on the cusp of everything. And London is one of the three meccas of the psychedelic movement. You got London, New York, and San Francisco. You know, you have a couple that come, but not as good as those ones.
Right.
And London, too, is interesting. It's its own, it is European psychedelic. It is a different thing. The Beatles are finally going into that. They're getting even weirder, you know, and they had that thing. And the squares, if you will, the establishment in London is even older, even more tighter, even more, you know, proper in that sense. So he, being that so far extreme, was perfect for going into that era. And that's when he got there, he had to get the best equipment and he had to get the best musicians to get on there. And they tried out some people, and that's where Mitch Mitchell came in and Noel Redding. Mitch Mitchell played drums. He was in the Axe Educational and the Corina Stage School, which is kind of like his proper training of jazz and
started playing
child acting and all of that.
So former child actor as well, starring in a TV show, which is crazy. The starring role in that TV show, and then like 2 movies. And then just learning drums like outside of like going to school every Saturday kind of thing.
Proper education.
And then becoming like a session drummer, and in one case filling in for fucking the in-between drummer of The Who, which is, let me see,
Keith Moon.
Before Keith Moon, they had another drummer, Doug Sandom.
Doug not going to work here now anymore?
Yeah. So when they were in between him, they had Mitch Mitchell come and fill in until Keith Moon. And it's like, I didn't even know that he wasn't the original guitar player for The Who.
Well, and The Who really helped them out with recording this album
yeah.
and getting them into it. And the record label they signed then was Track Records, which was the management of The Who. That was their
they
record
left and
label.
started their own record label.
Yeah, so they definitely were all tied in. And yeah, Noel Redding, he was the bass player or the guitar player of The Loving Kind back in like October of '65. And about a year later, he had auditioned for Jimmy's. He switched from guitar to bass pretty seamlessly, and he already had that, which is part of why his style was really like driving and really, it was a lead in a sense by keeping that rhythm on lockdown. And yeah, he was awesome in that. And he did some lead singing on The Experience, but once they all got together, they just all started recording over at 3 different studios. the Laneley, CBS, and Olympic Studios, all in London. Did about 16 sessions total, and from October 23rd of '66 to April 14th of '67, they were recording. And Chaz Chandler constantly needed more money.
Pretty much.
Keep on giving me another loan. I'll pay you later.
But
but he did it.
I just wanted to go back to Noel Redding before we move on from him, because it was like learning a little fun fact of, I heard he didn't get paid for any of this fucking shit. That's just one of the many things that popped up in research, hence why they got a new bass player after this album. And after he left in 1972, he started the Noel Redding's band with former guitar player of Thin Lizzy, Eric Bell, which is another fun fact that was just like, just like him and the guy from Thin Lizzy just... But other than that, they didn't really do too much.
They were bigger in Ireland because he was living in Ireland at the time.
Right, he's born in Ireland.
Yeah,
I
and he
believe.
went back, home, and he wanted to be there. And I that's also the thing, like personal preference. Like, I already lived that life there. I know what I like out of it, what I don't like. I can do that back at home with some alive guitar players because it's 72, like you're saying. Yeah, Jimmy's 2 years gone at that point. And and that's the thing. 1967, America. He hits the shore August 23rd, 67. He dies September 18th, 1970. He only has 4 years. He's here for 4 years in the mainstream.
Yeah.
Like the Big Bang, and then he's gone. And think about it though. What if he kept on going and he released a disco album or something like that in the 70s?
Tarnished the whole...
Totally tarnished it, or you find out he's just like how James Brown or Chuck Berry.
He's a creep.
Die before they find out how not bad, but how bad you are.
Creep.
Yeah.
Fucking, I like to watch women pee.
Yeah,
I like
exactly.
to smell it too.
Yeah. But what if he went that route? You don't know, but what he did do in that time is still to this day some of the greatest music ever recorded, and people are still striving for that level of excellence, and they'll never be able to come close.
And speaking of music, let's get into the next song, which is
Stone Free.
Ooh, yeah.
This was a B-side to Hey Joe, the first single.
Wow, that song always takes like a dramatic turn at the end, huh? Like where, it was like, wait, where's this song gonna go? And it just kind of fades, and you're like, what's the next song after that?
Well, that was the B-side of Hey Joe. Technically, it was never released on this album, but it was as a single. It does appear on the album post 1997.
Oh my God, it took that long, huh?
Yeah, well, and it did make appearances on compilations that it was on there, but in the original release, it was not on. But during this session, which had an interesting story behind it itself, the story behind it, how it got made. Which Chris knows a lot behind all that.
I know a little bit. Listening to the album, you can hear a few of the like production stuff, and definitely a lot of the multi-track that they're doing. You can hear like that last one, Stone Free. Towards the end of the song, it's getting real gnarly, and that's, I don't know, maybe that's intentional, but also it could just be a sign of the times, a sign of this is what we're tracking with, and when you start adding all this stuff. It was recorded from October 23rd, 66 to April 4th, 67. So that
5 months.
Pretty good little session, 16 sessions, I think.
16 sessions it took between three different studios.
So you got Chaz getting this, or Jimmy coming to Chaz seeing the potential in the project. Okay, I'm going to fund you. I've got all the resources I can give you. They go forth. He books at, Delaney Studios, which is in London. So they're booked, the booking sessions there. He's progressing. They're knocking songs out. They're getting these demos and foundations to the songs done. And this is where you're starting to break some of these singles at. They're recording Hey Joe. They're recording Stone Free. They're like, okay, these are good. Let's put them out. Let's get these singles out there. Let's get some music from you, out there. So they're they're doing stuff, but it's not what's on the album. That's going to come later with all these next sessions that they're going to be booking.
They're teasing us.
Yeah. So you have that going on. He's not really too happy with what's going on at Delay. So, or Delaying Lay. So I believe, let me see when around this time is. So around December, he's getting into business with CBS, and he's booking studio session time over there. And, all the while they're running into payment sort of negotiation failures when it comes to, booking time and prepaying, or booking time and getting paid post-session.
After the recording is finished.
Exactly, because, right
probably
now,
having to pay more if you're paying after because of this advancement that they're giving you.
Sure.
In some ways, I would think that would be the...
I think where Chaz had it is he didn't have any revenue coming in
capital,
from it
right?
until the album could have been released, and that's what he was hoping for. So he was hoping more for credit at the time instead of how CBS operated their business.
Which they seem so standard that they didn't even have a link in the Wikipedia. That they were just they make jingles for fucking commercials kind of thing. You know what I mean?
I mean, yeah, you got to think CBS has all the money in the world at this point.
I don't even know what the fuck they do anymore.
So yeah, they do that. They put out the singles. They released those in December 16th of 66. And I believe it's a track wasn't yet operational to distribute. So Polydor Records was the one that actually issued the first single, even though track would be the
record label.
The record, yeah. The full release would be under their watch. So then they recorded 2 alternate versions of Red House, and they worked on a few other songs. And then they started to take the CBS sessions, which he, again, wasn't happy with, and he's burning money, and it's just, okay.
He's not getting the right product.
He's not getting what he wants out of it.
He's running out of money, yeah.
I believe he hears from, I think it's somebody associated with The Who.
It was Bill Wyman and Brian Jones urged him to go to Olympic.
Yeah. So he goes there, and that's where we finally get the
That
meeting
production
of
value.
two minds of Eddie Kramer and Jimi Hendrix. Eddie Kramer is the mind behind the board that's getting all of these realizations to reality. These
listening to Jimmy
ideas,
and what he
the best
wants,
sound
and trying
out
to
of it.
help him portray it.
He's taking, Jimmy didn't like some of these other techniques that other studios were doing because it felt too restrictive. So what does Eddie do? He starts doing some new other type things with multi-tracking. We only have 4 tracks to work with. Okay, well, you know what? Let's record the base of everything. The base as far as the foundation. We're going to get a drums, and we're going to get the bass guitar and regular guitar. No vocals. Well, usually Jimmy's been tracking mono with drums. So just one mic, or not even, just having that one sound. Eddie opens it up. You know what? Instead of that one voice, one guitar, one bass, one drum, let's do 2 drums, 1 bass, 1 guitar, lay the foundation. Then we'll mix down the drums to 1 track, opening up another track for vocals, mix down after, it's a constant mixing, mix down, mixing, mix. So you're taking your tracks that are recorded and then summing them into one. But you got, that type of stuff is tricky back in the day, because that's why
This guy sounds like a fucking genius.
That's why you're having to, it takes a lot of work, a lot of time. There was a lot of mastering sessions that went into this album because they were summing everything up. And, we got an extra, we summed everything down to these 3 and we got an open track now. Let me just do a little bit of vocal things. And Jimmy's playing with headphones. He's running the album through headphones and putting it close to the microphone and pulling it away to get weird phasing. They're setting up mics at the end of the room and having his amp at the very far end and putting up, ribbon mics and these really different techniques, things
innovative
that
ways,
things that aren't really being done at the time. And he's trying them out, and he's getting results that, that are otherworldly and, to some extent making people nervous because you've never heard things like this, and you're worried is it going to work? What's it going to?
Right? Is
how's
it
it gonna
too
play?
weird?
And that was
right?
part of the
new?
thing at the time. People are like, how can you even work with this Jimi Hendrix? He's making these weird guitars. The guitar shall not sound like that.
And why it was so hard to sell Jimi Hendrix when they first got to England as well, getting denied by the first studio.
Decca.
Yeah, Decca. And just people like just finding it, again, too weird, you know?
Yeah,
Which he thought it was a good thing, but I think in his mind, he was thinking we need something to stir up and just cause this mass chaos. See this guy with a fucking boa on stage burning a fucking guitar, right? Like,
this is the
who
age to try
does that shit,
the boundaries,
right?
see where they are, and then blow past it and take it to a whole new level.
Yeah, and
This
it's a
was the
shock
time.
value as well, a lot of it. And that's how you really...
Especially how he
you
dressed.
create a spark, you know, is with that vulgarness and that being weird and people not liking it at first. And that's good. Because that's how you know you get something
that
great.
time of technological breakthroughs too in music, to where yes, the summing of the tracks, you know, being ingenuity with technology and making that work in the music. I mean, some other things with the production, they didn't. At the wah pedal was actually introduced around November '66, so you know you're having these sounds that they're having to manually create. I Don't Live Today features a wah effect, but it was manually done. They didn't have that technology quite. It wasn't, you know, we're at the
Not what we're
cusp
used
of it.
to, yeah.
You know, he's about to have that wah pedal on stage. Doesn't have that shit, you know, he's not playing
Not
with that yet. The Octavia sound that you hear on the solo to Purple Haze, that was introduced through the Olympic sessions. So you can imagine all these pre-sessions didn't have that sound.
Yeah, it was
And
just very basic, all those...
That's the first time he's using that pedal. It's the first time you're hearing that. If you're an audience, if you're, you know, this pedal isn't being used all over the place.
Nobody did.
Exactly. And so you're here. It's part of the is this going to work? Is this, you know, this is crazy sounds we're hearing. It's the time of the psychedelic scene. And, you know,
Well, and the thing is, you couldn't deny those sounds. They did work. You
right?
know?
Listening back to those tracks after like experimenting for hours and being like, all right, let's listen to it. And you're like, whoa, did we capture magic?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
you didn't even realize what you unleashed to the world.
The
almost.
idea is that you're trying to capture magic, and a great producer, a great engineer needs to get that band in the right mindset and set it up to capture them. One of the thing is like, what did they do in the studio? They're like, all right, why don't you guys just like run through a song real quick? I'm not going to record or anything, but just go ahead and like warm up. And they always fucking hit record.
Yeah.
Because they're
Always
trying to get
do.
you
I
off
think
guard.
that was
They're trying
another-
to get you in a natural state and not so scripted, I think.
They were
know?
so tight as a band that they would have, like, originally Chandler had rehearsal space booked. So not as only is he booking studio time, he's booking rehearsal space time. Where's all the money going? So he has them booked at these rehearsal spaces, but then shortly realizes the band is so good that when they're warming up in the studio, they can learn songs. They'll knock them out like that. So why am I booking rehearsal time for this amazing band?
Condense it.
Yeah. So now they're just learning songs in the studio because they're that good. And,
Damn.
you know, a funny story about the release, and we were talking about like the craziness of the noises and the sounds, is Chandler's taken the demo up to the A&R, taking it up to the head of Polydor or whatever the, you know, finished LP. This is what you paid for. You know, I'm showing the money man what he paid for. Yeah. Hopefully he likes it.
Hope you like it.
Yeah. And, you know, he's nervous. He has this cut of the demo. He plays it, plays side A, nothing said, flips it over to side B, plays it. At the very end, you know, the guy's like, this is genius. This is the best thing I've ever heard. You know, more. And then since then, and that's when full steam ahead with
Green light go.
You know.
Green light go. Well, there was two separate, we talked about this earlier, two separate releases. The idea was that you didn't want to put on those singles onto the UK, like, or onto the album that you're releasing.
You
or
already
whatever,
sold
right?
the song.
Yeah.
Your new songs.
Mm-hmm.
So what was it? 3 months later, this finally gets to America after the UK, and the songs over there that were hitting the charts were not the same as what was going to hit over here, in the weirdest ways. Because
Well, part is taste.
Yeah.
Part is the audience taste.
right, but Purple Haze didn't do shit in fucking England, you know, and over here is number one.
Because in America they did have a little bit more of a harder edge in it, you know.
Right, we're grittier.
Yeah, a little more grittier in the rock and roll. And
I think we had our
in the
Iggy Pop at this
UK,
time.
yeah, they wanted a little bit more,
so.
like, you know, Foxy Lady, they were all about that one, you know, and everybody was all about Hey Joe and what have you. But yeah, it does come down to that little nuance of audience, ultimately, I think is why they chose Purple Haze in America as opposed to Foxy Lady in the UK for the first track. And how it got introduced, because if you think in the UK, you're opening up with that first like little F sharp that he's bending, that little vibrato, and then boom, and he comes in. You know, that's his own thing. But you come to America, and it's this big monster beast of that Purple Haze, that boom, boom. You know, it just
especially
was
seeing it
coming
live.
in.
I'm sure it was
Some mammoth.
amazing.
I think
your old record player could not portray like he's seeing it live with their Mondo giant amps with the slits cut down the side of them for reverb purposes. I can only imagine what shows were like back then because of the quality of an album and seeing it live and the feeling and the loud intensity. And Hendrix did it best. He became like super famous for that one show in England where he set his guitar on fire. It was a live
Monterey
show.
Pop Festival. Yeah.
Oh,
It was
a
Monterey
festival.
Pop Festival. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was before he recorded this album, right?
Well, this is 1967 when he did that, and part of that was it was released in UK. Paul McCartney urged the promoters, you need to
Right.
get him on there, and Pete Townsend and all of them were like, yeah, you know, you got to. And that was really what broke him through then on a global scale, because in London, he did make it in London, and that was, you know, why it was released first, and they dug him right away. America took a little bit more, but it was that Monterey, that performance,
Recorded
stole the show,
live performance,
and then
yeah.
him on the guitar was one of the most iconic spiritual, like, I mean, thing you could witness, and it's undeniable. I mean, it really is undeniable when you
It's
witness
amazing,
it.
yeah.
It's
We've
one of
seen that
those,
video 1,000 times.
you know, actual
Dangerous.
footage. Yeah,
It's straight up spring.
yeah. You know,
It's so fucking cool. In addition to the release in the UK and the release in America, there was 2 different album arts too. And if a lot of people have never seen the UK one, it is boring.
Yeah.
it's dark. There's not
It
a lot of
is.
color except for the logo in the center.
I get having the faces in there because you want
I think they're
people to
wearing
know
dark
the
clothes.
faces. You want
That
to put
yellow
this
one
face
is so
with this music
iconic. I
and
think
this
it's
name.
even surpassed the UK one.
Well, and it's-
Maybe
and
we'll
it's an
maybe we'll
American
fade in a
version.
picture
That's
here
the
or
American
put a link
version,
up
and they
for
kinda-
that image.
Part of why I think it did get a little bit more, and two,
I was-
that bright yellow,
That's why, yeah. Like I see more like
Oh man,
posters,
bright color scheme.
towels, like whatever
Oh, a
memorabilia
shirt?
of that album
Yeah.
more than the
A
UK.
yellow shirt.
It's on my coaster at home.
Yeah.
it really is the American artwork is
Yeah.
just that album cover. It's so iconic.
That's what people know.
No one even gives a fuck about the UK one. If anything, they
Unless
probably
you're a
sold
collector.
that.
If you're a collector, you
I
want
would
it.
hope Polly, whatever the fuck, just went ahead and changed that fucking over in the
Sorry
UK
we
too.
did that.
Oh
Yeah.
shit, I'm gonna slip that out. It was some asshole that thought he had a good idea of what we should do for this album artwork, and he was wrong.
And the guy who took that photo, the iconic one, was Kyle Ferris.
Is that a miracle shot?
What's that?
A miracle shot where everyone's faces are presented with no sunglasses, right?
Yep, that's what that is.
There it is.
That's the first
Another
or
miracle
another. I mean, probably not the first, but a very iconic miracle shot.
Right. Which we brought up before, which this is like
NWA.
starting to give me goosebumps because it's like, oh my God. Even from Jimi Hendrix to NWA, there are similarities and some degrees of connection.
We're all connected.
It's fucking weird and awesome. And doing these episodes, I've learned a lot, and to get in and the research and just knowing that, like, oh yeah, David Lee Roth's grandfather owned that fucking place. Like, what? When did David Lee Roth even enter this goddamn story? You know,
He's always been in it.
the fuck.
Or just
He's Diamond
you
Dave
got
for a reason.
Keith Richards' girlfriend like doing things.
Yeah, standing
Yeah.
over and be like,
What?
these guys are great.
Exactly. Paul McCartney and Pete Townsend watching him both
Right.
being like, Wow.
And then just like joining in with Cream that time on stage.
Yeah.
On stage, they were like, "Oh, our friend Jimmy is gonna come up and play with us."
And
like,
that was
playing
the
two
thing.
songs. It
What
was like,
side are you
who
on?
the
Clapton
fuck?
or Hendrix? Clapton or Hendrix? That was the debate. You know.
That was the debate.
Yeah, I'm always Team Hendrix.
No, I'm gonna go with
all
Hendrix,
due
too.
respect to
Only Clapton songs I
Love
fucking
the
know
guy,
are cover
but
songs, so it doesn't really matter.
JJKL. Yeah. Well, it is what it is. You know? Anyways, what's the next song in this? This is
fourth
Eddie
song.
Kramer's produced next tune.
Yes, I believe.
Wind Cries Mary.
He did
We're gonna hear that production
the straight up engineering on this one, so let's check it out.
That was the Jimi Hendrix Experience. The Wind Cries Mary. This is Bang 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 Over Radio.
Yeah. Eddie Kramer engineered style of that.
What a relaxed ass song, right?
I think you definitely can hear the like stereo drum thing where it's like real roomy. You got like a lot of space on the room, but then the guitar is super dry.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, you know.
I could hear like some buzz in there too that they just kind of left. Anyone else kind of hear that, or is it just my headphones? But it kind of has that stereo feel of just like that
vintage.
For the drums, you mean?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
like this weird like
a little
crackles.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of pleasant, and it's almost like these sometimes the flaws, like the it not being so perfect, is what makes this so good. You know what I mean? It's like you're really hearing it. It's not overproduced, like overproduced. You know what I mean? Even though they were like swinging amps from a rope in the fucking studio or whatever, I don't know what they were doing. Throwing microphones at
Turning
walls,
stuff
seeing what
up.
happens.
Nope.
Yeah.
Broke another mic.
Yeah,
Bet it
Jumping
sounded,
on
bet it sounded
cymbals,
great
yeah.
though.
Yeah, sounded great. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, that's the thing. I mean, this album, it rocks. It has 5 singles on it that just take it over. And, I mean, it starts, you know, the Jimi Hendrix Experience that, in my world, is just the ultimate band that ended up with Band of Gypsies. You know, the guys eventually, Mitch Mitchell got replaced by Buddy Miles and whatnot. And
he got
then
replaced
Yep, and Billy Cox took over for Noel Redding. And
because he didn't get paid.
Well, yeah, well, you know, I guess they like
I'll
that.
be pissed.
I think, well, that was probably for the recording, not so much for the live performances.
He
And
probably didn't get no residuals, no.
Well, Noel
the
Redding
Jimi Hendrix Experience,
ended
not the
up
fucking
getting
Noel
stung.
Redding's band.
he did get, in 1980, he sold his royalty rights for like $100,000 because he was promised they would
That's
never
fucking cheap.
release another record of Jimmy at that time. Well, this is before CDs were invented and DVDs and all that stuff. He didn't see that far in the future, so he just agreed to
No more records.
sign. Yeah, he agrees. Like, well, think about it.
Dumbass.
Do you want like the royalties and then it dries up, or this lump sum? Well,
100,000
in 1980, I guess, and
It's
Hendrix
pretty good, I
wasn't
guess.
maybe as legendary
Still.
because disco kind of came. People kind of forgot,
Oh,
except for those
yeah.
in the scene who
There
really
wasn't the
loved
fucking
him.
internet to
There's no
just
internet.
sell it
Internet.
across to Japan.
There's no
to China,
concept of that.
to Russia, everywhere around
And
the world.
$100,000 for this Irish guy.
I think DVDs too probably helped whenever you're like the legendary Woodstock. When you're like
Isle of Wight.
all these, and it's like
Monterey Pop.
He's famous for his albums, but he may be almost as famous or infamous for his live performance that have
That's
been captured.
true.
Like of any musician alive, you know, these specific live performances are like almost as important or more than your albums because
Because
of how
you didn't hear
I
that
think
song
more
unless you were
than the
there.
album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He only did it that time there. He changed it up all the time. It was somewhat of a jam of this is what the music's speaking to me. I must let it be out.
It's in the moment.
It's in
That's
the
what it
moment.
And
is.
they knew each
captured it,
other
yeah.
enough to where they could just go with it, and they.
You could miss a note and it.
But
still
it
work
wasn't.
out, kind of
But he
thing.
didn't miss it. You know.
Or he just bended into it, right?
That was the
if
thing.
his guitar
would-
was out of tune,
if
he would
it-
just
he would
bend it
bend
down.
up
Yeah.
to get there. And
Yeah.
I mean, this is a virtuoso guitar player, and we talked about his resume and who he learned under and whatnot. It's
pretty impressive.
And that's the thing at this time too. You got the one and only Lemmy roadieing for him at that time. So you're talking about Apprentice
That's
Master.
insane.
You
Just
know,
so
Lemmy.
many of people, you know, we're talking about all these other.
Jimmy Vaughn introducing him to Jimi Hendrix and be like, hey, my little brother plays like you, fucking Stevie Ray Vaughan. He was like, oh, and this is right before he fucking died. You know, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
And
Billy
connecting in so many
Gibbons.
ways. I can't believe fucking Lemmy was there, man.
yeah,
Roadie.
Well, he keeps popping up in every story.
because he's Lemmy.
God
Lemmy is
damn
God.
I think what is it? The stories he'd
The
get Jimmy
fuck?
acid, he'd get Jimmy drugs. And
Yeah.
shit. Yeah.
That's probably where the like why Hawkwind sounded the way it did, because Hawkwind is very different from Motorhead. You know,
Yeah.
Hawkwind is kind of like laid back. It's cool. The song Motorhead is where you can kind of see the inspiration for where Motorhead's gonna become. But Hawkwind's kind of like laid back, kind of trippy dippy. You
Well,
know?
and that's the psychedelic side of
Yeah.
it, right? And
I guess I could see where it comes from now.
And I think that's the thing too of why this is. We were talking about scenes, like it fits in rock and roll, it fits in psychedelic. Heavy metal heads, they're all about it. You know, the punks can be
They
about it.
always call it heavy metal. Like this was heavy metal back in the
Yeah,
day. The
because
sounds
this
he was
is before
making,
Led
yeah.
Zeppelin. This is before Black
Classic
Sabbath.
rock. This is heavy metal.
This
bitches.
is as heavy as it got in 1967, and this is before MC5 even on the underground in America. And this,
Well, we had the Who, but you know.
and the Who, and that's the thing. The Who is loud. The
Yeah.
Who was
I would-
classical. They were awesome. Keith Moon alone.
He was like a Jimi Hendrix
Like-
drummer. He was like that weird
Innocent.
on
They
a
were-
drugs on a different level,
Comparing
resetting the
Jimmy to
style.
like Sabbath heavy, where it's like, you know,
Oh, for
Foxy
real.
Lady, dun dun ran, bum bum ran, bum bum, like
Okay, yeah.
that. The Who wasn't doing shit like that, even though they were loud or even, you know,
They were very like musical on their
Exactly,
their
yeah.
stuff. And, I mean, but
was
they.
like-
I mean, they're
they
trying to
did
follow the
tasteful.
Beatles, right?
It was like a difference.
No, they
in
were
like,
the.
no, I mean, like
separate.
everyone at that time was in some ways like when the Beatles made their infamous
'cause of
fame.
English.
They were like, okay, let's kind of look like them. Let's wear the suits. Let's.
Well,
do
that was the
haircut.
style. Everybody
the
wore the
Rolling
same
Stones
stuff.
fucking did it.
That was
yeah.
just music in
And
the day.
They all kind of sounded like until they, I guess, did drugs.
until that Timothy
got
Leary
real.
came around and those gurus and everybody.
Thank
and,
God.
You know,
Yeah.
no
That's
shit.
why we have this album, right? Maybe a little bit of like the
sure.
the drugs at the time too,
Well-
the energy in the air, like you were saying, the people he's around. But he's experimenting with so many things, which
When
kind
he
of
wrote
ended.
Purple Haze. He
this.
didn't even do acid yet. Like, you know, some of these songs he has yet to do all the fun stuff
Mind
he's
alter.
getting into.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe he smoked a joint or whatever,
Yeah.
but that's
You don't
marijuana.
think he was tripping out? before
No,
this
not
album?
until like
think someone
it
in a
got
club
released.
somewhere gave him a
not until it got
some,
like
yeah.
yeah,
probably-
when he was a rock star. Then
he was
She's
doing
probably
all
doing it
stuff
way too much.
smoking with all the like, you know, backup bands he's playing with, all these you
Yeah.
know, dudes hanging
tr-
out in the
yeah.
alleyway waiting to play. You know,
Of
That's
course.
what you did.
Yeah.
that's
We're
as
still
mind
doing
altering
that.
as you
yeah,
got.
at that, yeah.
The acid is still in my freezer. I didn't want to take it at the show. I was like, I don't know, man.
You should have.
I'm
You
saving
should've.
it.
Oh my god,
I should have saved it for this episode in honor of Jimmy. Like slam
God.
that tab on
That
it
Yeah.
would've
in
Well,
the beginning of this
separate
episode, and by the
episode
end.
within an episode.
Yeah, and our friend Jim
Just
Ortiz,
walk
he's a
away.
big Jimi Hendrix, you know, disciple. He plays the Marshall, he plays the Stratocaster. Him and I were having a good time on that stuff. So yeah, we were definitely experienced.
Okay, being guitar players, Jimi Hendrix top 5, right? In the
Top.
your top
Easily,
5.
yeah.
He's my
Easily?
top.
Top
He's
3.
the top one.
Top 3
for me. He's number one.
Top.
Top 3 favorite guitar players. Is he in your top 3?
He's
Yeah.
my number one.
Top 2?
I mean, I don't know.
It's
you know,
Jimmy and everybody else in my
See,
world.
you're Jimmy's number 1.
Yeah.
We already know where you stand.
Yeah.
But okay, no, but still, like very
I mean,
fucking close.
I'm
I mean, your
I'm
guitar player
thinking of
this is
on,
the
like,
guy that revolutionized
Yeah.
some shit. Revolutionized. But
I mean, I think
That's-
yeah, he did.
yeah.
He did revolutionize a lot. So
I don't think I care as much as you guys do about Jimi Hendrix as much as I care about the songs, you know, and like his style and him burning shit for sure. Like, but Jimmy is like he's set different in y'all's minds because your craft is the guitar, and he
These
was
are
one
some of the
those
first songs
pioneers
you
and-
learn
yeah.
or you inspire to
Like,
learn
yeah,
because
you
of
attempt
how
to learn.
I could talk about Keith Moon way more in depth. You know, if we did a Who episode, I'd be up Keith Moon's butt. I'd be like fucking top 5 guys, number
Yeah.
1. No, probably top 10. I don't know.
I mean, how
But-
many covers of these songs have bands played because of how iconic, you know, and even just redone them? Like you were saying, like
the body count song.
The body count one.
Everybody brings in
so
their
cool.
rendition.
Exactly.
I've seen numerous of, Are You Experience, I Don't Live Today. I personally have covered Manic Depression and When Cries Mary.
You play them in practice sometimes.
Yeah,
and
I'll bust them out just because.
I think I've heard them so many times. I'm like,
it's fun to play and it's a good warm up. And I mean, and the thing is too, like you're getting at the songs, the lyrics. Some of them, is a little bit of hippie stuff, but there are some really good lyrics in there, and there's some beautiful words that he says in it, especially within, and they're catchy too. And like, "May This Be Love" is really hippie, catchy. You can't, it's bubblegum in a sense. You get to "I Don't Live Today," and he's talking about how he just can't stand what this world's doing to him and the pain that's coming out. You can hear both with the guitar singing along and his voice about him, and he don't live today.
He's three things. He's not only one of the world's greatest guitar players, he's a fucking amazing singer and
songwriter.
a fucking spectacular songwriter. And those can all three be very separate things that a musician could have. He had all three. That's a triple threat.
Yeah, some people only get
and
one.
style. Let me just put style on there,
Yeah.
and performance, like how his performance style, like him performing.
And that goes back to his, apprenticeship going with B.B. King, Sam Cooke, Jackie Wilson, and seeing how they bring a show. I mean, there's something to be said about learning your stage presence is almost as important as the instrument itself.
That's true. You get by.
And if you can incorporate it, or one feeds the other, I mean, you're almost unstoppable.
Did you guys see the movie?
Yes.
I did not.
Not recently. It's been a minute.
Andre 5000.
I've only seen it
plays
once,
Jimi Hendrix?
and it was not
he's not
a favorite.
He didn't make it to 5,000. Okay,
No.
not yet.
Not yet.
So, did you like it?
As far as biopics go, there was a lot lacking. I mean,
Critically acclaimed? It
was fine.
they didn't have the rights to any of his music. They didn't get it. So what is
So
the
no
story?
songs?
No songs.
Oh.
What is the story about? It's about Jimmy just dabbling in clubs and playing random tunes and
Being
no
a jerk.
song and being a jerk and no song you've
He's
ever
a
heard
jerk?
of.
Yeah.
Because it's just him noodle. Like, I don't even remember what songs they actually had him play. But
I can't even remember it. Nothing
exactly.
sticks out.
It's just, you don't get
He's
any,
hitting his
any
wife?
classic.
Yeah,
His girlfriend?
and like that happened. I guess okay, that's never justified.
They do the
but-
story. They do the story of showing him go through the army and like his struggles, and then
biography.
And his parents were also
biography.
they're alcoholics, and I think that kind of has something to do with it. He had his own pain from his parents and whatnot. And like when his mother died, he didn't even go to her funeral because his dad's like, no, you take a shot, and this is how men deal with it. Old army guy. So he had his own stuff going on as it was with alcohol and it was said by friends when he would drink, he would just sometimes turn into a bastard. Just asshole.
yeah, how many? I mean, reading through the stories of them recording, how many times he would throw tantrums and
Holy
just,
shit, for real?
Yeah,
He was not a chill guy, because I just imagine him just being like
no,
way
just
too chill
your
and not
amp's
caring.
too loud. Your amp's too loud. Okay, well, you know what? Fuck you. If my amp's too loud, I'm gonna go back to the U.S. So what does the engineer do? Pull out his fucking passport and shit, puts it on the table. Okay, well, go fucking to back there. And then
Get the
okay, you
fucking-
called my bluff. I'm just staying. It's like
Damn, Jimmy.
just yeah.
Well, how old is he at this time?
Well, okay, so he was 27 when he died. So this is about 4 years. So yeah, he's 23, going on 24 during
Of
this
course he's
time.
acting
He's
like
acting
this.
like a
Come
child.
on.
Yeah.
He's a fucking kid.
Yeah, ultimately he is a kid.
Send you back to the US.
apparently-
Get the fuck out.
Well, apparently
Yeah.
he didn't really have like any like he didn't have a father figure really. He was kind of like tattered. His home life was all
Yeah,
kind of
he
fucked up
was his
kind of
own
situation.
I mean, he had to kind of
You're
fend for
23.
himself.
You're not doing bad being in the studio trying to record an amazing fucking album.
And in his mind, he's been the man of the house for a while, ultimately too, because he was kind of a somewhat abused family. He didn't really see it in that sense,
Yeah.
And I mean, he was something else, and we only got him for 27 years. He's part of the 27 Club,
Yeah.
and
Well, sometimes I don't want to know these things about musicians, like watching the Queen movie, Bohemian Rhapsody. I was like, man, he
The dark
really
side
just
of
seems like a fucking like chauvinistic fucking asshole. Where it's just like, people notice me, god damn it, it's like, It's like,
But
God,
also,
he really seems like a fucking like not the coolest person.
he's
I
a
do not
lead
wanna hang
singer
out.
too, though. Like it's almost like
I get
lead
it.
singers.
I get
What do you like?
Everyone
attention?
has their dark sides, like you were
I
saying.
think,
Yeah.
there's the we see the beauty in the art, but then never, the
other
scars
side
of the artist.
We're seeing
are-
his TV performances,
Yeah.
not him like drunk in the studio, like y'all
Nobody
can go to
sees that.
hell.
Nobody
I'm
does
going
unless you're there.
home.
Yeah.
That's true. Do you guys have a favorite song on the album? If you pick one, let's do the original 11. U.S.
Of the original 11 U.S., it will be the song we play last, and it's the title track. If I had to pick one,
I think so
our
too.
experience, it's psychedelic, has great words, awesome hook when it comes back in, and the solo with that kind of like reverse guitar, sitar, whole notes coming in, it just melts almost. It seems like it's a acid trip or whatnot. It's 100% psychedelic,
I couldn't pick one. I don't know if I could. I wanted to pick one that wasn't a song that would be like played all the time. But then when I was like Stone Free, and you're like, that's not on the U.S. Original 11. I'm like, well, fuck.
It is now. It is now. Post 97 when they re-released it all.
No.
And Experience Hendrix, his family's estate took it over, and they re-released it with that. So it is now. And
Dude,
Stone Free's
Do
a
you think
great
they're
song.
making an insane amount of money today?
I hope so.
From
I
his
hope so.
music?
Why not?
Yeah.
Well, I think his music's probably grossing more money than it ever did. back then when he
Merchandise,
was
all the
alive.
extra merchandise is on
Yeah,
everything.
and around the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then selling it to said, have you heard it in a commercial before?
It's
I
been
mean,
there.
car commercials, I
Yeah.
think.
That's what I was
think,
thinking.
uh,
I was like, fuck.
Fire's
We already
been
lose it?
used, and I think
uh,
Foxy Lady's
I was
been
gonna say
used.
We already lost
wrestling. They licensed or didn't Hulk
Voodoo Child, which is a different album, but yeah, and
Damn it.
Hollywood Hogan used
Rolling
Voodoo
Hills
Child
is
when he
great.
came on in there.
different, but
I don't wanna think
Jimmy
of these
was
products.
licensing his music for
The
the
yeah,
family was
yeah.
the estate.
I don't want to
Why
think of
not?
these fucking
Yeah.
products when I hear these songs. That's the thing. It's like,
NWO?
don't
But then they
ruin that
become
for me.
iconic. Not only like it becomes iconic for that. Like that's why like these songs are so awesome. They try to pull from it the greatness, but then it also becomes now every time you hear that you're like, oh, Hulk Hogan's here. He's about to walk through
Somebody's
the door.
ripping his shirt off.
Would you guys go see it if it was like a hologram projection?
I mean,
Would you like buy a ticket to see Jimi Hendrix perform as a hologram?
I'm not going to say no. It depends on circumstances.
Yeah, yeah.
You feel like
It's
not like the original
I mean,
man.
people go see the Pink Floyd fucking laser show.
That's what I'm saying.
That's true,
Yeah.
too.
So what's the
difference?
What's the difference between having
No
awesome
difference,
visuals
probably.
and awesome music?
Yeah.
That's true.
And,
I mean,
but there is some, like, ultimately you're sitting in a big amphitheater listening to somebody press play, right? Even if you had a backing band and just his stuff, it's still like you're just listening to a CD
well,
in a
I think
big
also
Yeah.
arena.
I think they could do
The
it really good with
experience.
him. I think it depends on the artist. With him, they probably have so many backup recordings and just, you know what I mean? Like
a lot of
live
releases
recordings,
after,
live
yeah.
recordings they could pull from to where every show would be different. It would be a different take from a different concert they recorded in 60 whatever. But you're getting this show this night. The next night's getting that show, and it's different.
That's true.
One
too.
in
That would
LA,
be
one
pretty
in
cool.
London.
That's
different
actually
every
pretty
time.
Cool.
The
It
Isle of
sounds
Wight.
different every
Wow.
time, and there's a real band behind it.
That'd
doing
be
the
amazing.
drums, doing
Yeah.
whatever it is, and
So if you
Okay, so I would go. I would
yeah,
fucking go.
you got Jimmy doing this weird like stuff on stage that it looks like,
and he's not doing it the night before because it's
completely different.
yeah, or he did it at this one show in
Yeah.
60 whatever.
You could even take
Right.
the actual footage of him doing it and redo it. I guess
Yeah.
I don't know where they're at with technology.
Sure.
If I did,
I mean-
I'd have more money.
Right. Well, any other final thoughts, y'all, on this album before we close it out with "Are you experienced"?
No,
My final thought is the prolificness. In doing the research, like seeing how many songs they recorded, how fast they're recording, how they're just early on realizing they don't need rehearsal space. You know what I mean? This is a studio band just making music in the studio. So that early on, they're that prolific. There's songs that weren't included on the album. There are songs that are lost. Like they're recording songs, doing this multi-track thing, and look, I don't know what
Still
song.
uncovering
Still
songs.
uncovering songs from sessions, and this is the first album, and he's already this prolific. So
Wow.
Then that's why there are so many of the, Jimi Hendrix albums still coming out to this day of unreleased material, of
tracks they threw of the released material.
Yeah. And
different versions.
It's crazy to just do in the research to see how early on things were just being discarded because he's making too much. So that's
insane.
Yeah.
Talk about probably one of the greatest self-titled albums, just the first album for a great band, great musician. This is one hell of a release. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, we talked Leonard Skinner, that's one hell of a release, but this is maybe some next level shit.
I think so.
There's not
more
too many of
songs
these,
on
right?
it.
There's
There's
not too
more
many
songs on it,
these
and
kind of scale.
And unlike there's 3 members in this band where there's 3 guitar players in that one.
Yeah.
So there's that
They're
aspect.
different, all right.
And when you're hearing it, you're like, this is, and you read the liner notes, 3 people, and then you're listening to it and you're trying to compute what you're actually seeing on the cover of these 3 guys and listening to. You're like, what the?
No, the fuck.
And then When Cry Mary has 5, they're doing these tricks.
Especially when
doubling up, so it's
when you're a young guitar player learning this stuff, and you're like, "Why can't I figure all this out?" Well,
yeah,
there's a
maybe
reason.
If you had 2 other guys with you playing guitar,
playing a rhythm or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Doing this line and you're doing that line.
Yeah.
Well, should we close it out then? Should we get experienced?
Let's see if people are experienced.
Yeah. Thank y'all for joining us. Remember, follow us on all the social media platforms at BANGover Production on Instagram, Facebook. Follow our YouTube page. You'll see a lot of live videos there. And thanks again.
Thank you.